We'll move on to our third presenter for this session, Dr. Kashyapi Awasthi. Dr. Awasthi is currently serving as an assistant professor at the National Center for School Leadership, NIEPA. She has conducted evaluative research for the government of Gujarat to assess the implementation of government policies, programs, and schemes like the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan and functioning of Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalayas. She has served on the advisory bodies of different state governments, and she's told me to stop. Thank you.
Very good afternoon, everyone. And in fact, my co-panelists have done most of the job. So thank you, Subir, and thank you, Vimla. In fact, while both of them were talking, and in fact, this morning when Padma was also giving her keynote address, I was just wondering, do we even want the system to change? Recently, NIPA was given this assignment of 2 years of completion of the implementation of NEP. So we were doing this report on the implementation. And of the 300 odd tasks that the ministry has laid down on the Sarthak document, we were really looking at it, how much we have traveled. And there were these time targets also given in the Sarthak document itself. So we had not much to do but map with those time targets. The things that have happened in the field, I was just looking at them. Perhaps why do we hear so much of talk on FLN is because not because I felt, not because the government is so keen on improving the functional literacy and numeracy, but because it's the task that teachers have to do it. Probably the system doesn't need to change in it. So somewhere where we need to make the teachers accountable and see to it that it is done, we'll push it forward. But where the system has to actually change, the structures have to change, the governance has to change, that we'll talk later on. So when the entire emphasis is on this entire restructuring of school education, where we talk about the 5+3+3+4 system and the addressing school in a continuum from 3 to 18 years age group, I was looking at whether there's any structural change anywhere that has happened in any part of the country, in any state that is initiated. I think Assam tried to do so. Otherwise, because if you want schools to be seen as a continuum, you will have to have the bureaucracies, the departments of education to be united. Currently, we have states where you have Department of Primary Education and then Department of School Education. In some states, they call it, which is actually secondary education. And in some states like Himachal Pradesh, 11th and 12th, senior secondary is part of Department of Higher Education. So once again, it doesn't come into the purview of school education also. So when any circular or anything that comes to the school, even if the school is a comprehensive school, the principals may not obey certain circulars and HMs may not obey certain other circulars, and the primary school may not obey certain other circulars because they're all governed by different bureaucracies. And no state, I would say, because I personally work with some of these states so closely, Himachal for that matter, I have tried to move right from the political bosses to the these are our positions. So as he was saying, we have this system to actually feed people. So we don't want it to change, because if it changes, how do we feed? So whether we want systems to change or not. So that's the entire idea. And therefore, when I didn't want to do too much of this negative talk, so I shaped my paper in saying that, in my idea in saying nurturing professional capital, a systems thinking perspective for systemic change. And I've restricted it to diets and SCRTs because this was a small study that I was doing with diets and SCRTs. But I'll connect to what has been said this morning and to the entire system, because that would then be relevant. So I'm bringing three ideas here. And this, when I say professional capital, I'm using the scholarship of Michael Fullan and Andy Hargreaves, where they really look at professional capital from the point of view of seeing it as an amalgamation, if I may say that way, of human capital, social capital, and the decisional capital. And how do we really nurture this three so as to nurture the professional capital? And that is how we really look at systems changing. How do I, and then I'm drawing this from my experiences of the field, and I'll share 3 case studies which will really make it more relevant in terms of how systems change. I begin from a small school that I happen to see in Lahore Spiti district of Himachal Pradesh. This is a two-teacher school, primary school, 1 to 5th grade. I had to trek to reach to that school. Uh, you only see ice, snow all around. The only vegetation that you see in that place is peas, and which is black in color because no sun, so no photosynthesis, so it is black in color. Uh, it was a 2 room school, and those 2 rooms were kind of partitioned into 3 rooms. And one room was used as an audiovisual aid room where the teacher, from his own expense, had brought a small portable TV. I don't know if you've even seen that now because it's outdated for us. A black and white portable TV and those huge cassettes which we used to watch some time back. He used to really show children some nursery rhymes and some movies and things like that. Now another room, there was a huge board, maybe of the size of this TV screen, and it said achievements of the school. And I was with all looking at what is the achievement of this small primary school in at some 12,000 feet height. Uh, After 5th grade, all students from my school have been to Navodaya Vidyalayas for continuing their education. And that was such a proud thing for this teacher. And because it's so cold, you don't see people facing the boards like in other usual classrooms. So they had this chimney right in the center, and they were sitting all around it. And 12 students, ask any student any uh, question with regard to any of their subjects equally. So 5th grader also and a 1st grader also. The beauty of learning together, that they a first or a second grader would also be able to answer a knowledge, a question of something that is of a 3rd or a 4th grader, because they're all sitting together and learning with each other. It was such a pleasure. And I asked this teacher, where have you received any training of the in the recent past? He said, never. I've never been anywhere. I said, okay. What keeps you so motivated? And then there's a small window out near that board, and he shows that you see this little window which is bringing that light from outside. Now, this window, I am this window to this community, and through me, they see the world outside. And it's my responsibility, I feel, to connect them to this. You've come from Delhi? I said, yeah. And one of my student, alumni of the school, has recently got admitted to AIMS, and you must meet her. And it was such a it still gives me shivers when I talk of this teacher. uh, I said, how do you teach in a multi-grade situation? And he showed me some cards that he had made. He had arranged the curriculum in a manner which is uh, content. He had gradified the entire content and categorized it into, so that children are able to learn, and children decide how they want to navigate through the entire curriculum. So it was not fixed or structured the way the textbooks are structured. And I said, who taught you this? नहीं, बच्चों को कैसे सीखना है उनसे पूछ के मुझे समझ में आया, तो मैं वैसे वैसे करता गया जो मुझे समझ में आता गया. So his entire learning or training came from the children, how they were learning, how they want to learn, and therefore how do I arrange my curriculum, my textbooks, the way children want to learn, and then the way it helps them. And that is how 2 of us keep learning. I said, anybody visits your school? Has anybody ever come to your school? कभी कभी बीआरसी महोदय आते हैं, जब 9 महीने में एक बार रास्ता खुलता है. इट्स अ वैली, सो द एक्चुअली रोड गेट्स क्लोज्ड टू दैट स्कूल. तो 9 महीने में एक बार कुछ फंड देना है, कुछ डेटा लेना है, तो आते हैं. It told me that if things have to change, the autonomy and agency of the teachers have to be recognized, have to be acknowledged, have to be appreciated, and they need to be trusted for what they are doing. And that is my first lesson in system change. What this morning Padma Sarangpani was talking about. What do we think about our teachers? How do we think about them? If we keep on living in this belief that nothing good is happening, teachers don't know anything, they are very poor, we need to teach them, we need to keep on directing, and everything has to be top down, perhaps you are not allowing them to use their own agency. And therefore, I feel it's this decisional capital of the teacher to really judge and deal with the situations that arise in front of them, to really understand their children, to study and to know what they want to know, how they want to know, how they want to learn, to really feel the context, to be with it, and to bring that change. I think that's the first thing I feel. If systems have to change, we'll have to believe in the potential of the teacher, trust them, and acknowledge their autonomy, give them their autonomy, and respect their agency. I think that to me is the way things can change. I'm bringing another case from same state, Himachal Pradesh, but district Kullu. I worked with this cluster. I'm working rather with this cluster since 2013. We did our first program on school leadership in 2012 with District Kullu. And since then, one of the school principals in that workshop itself, he shared some of his challenges being a principal of a senior secondary school. I am responsible for the feeder schools in my cluster. And every time I go back to my teachers and talk about the poor levels of learning, the reason that I get to hear from them is feeder school se bacche seekh kar nahi aate, kya kare? So children who are coming from the primary schools or the secondary schools or the other middle schools, the learning levels are very poor. So perhaps unless we do this, because that to me nurtures this belongingness, nurtures this ownership. I see this when I was talking to the school principals and teachers, and I said, what is the difference? You receive so many trainings from diets and SCRTs. What is the difference in the training that you are doing in-house? And one of the lecturers told me that uh, उस ट्रेनिंग में जब हम जाते थे तो वो चाहे बहुत अच्छी हो फिर भी हम निष्फिक्र होके जाते थे, सीख कर आते थे, पर वापस अपने स्कूल में जब आए तो फिर अपने रेगुलर शेड्यूल में लग जाते थे. सो we were not able to actually find implications to what we had learned from the trainings in our schools. But when we are doing this training on our own, it has emerged from our own school needs. We have developed it based on our understanding of our children. And therefore, there is so much of ownership and belongingness that unless we change, unless we bring this change, we'll have to do this exercise again. So even because we don't want to do this exercise again, we are seeing to it that we make it successful. And that is what, so that's the belongingness. So if systems have to change, every individual in the system has to nurture this feeling of belongingness, is something I learned from this example. And the third aspect, which I think Suvir mentioned when he was talking about uh, even NCRT doesn't know who's developing NCF. Perhaps putting right people in right places. You will have to invest in right kind of human capital if you want the systems to change. And therefore, who is leading which institution, how, when, where, I think is very important. So our SCRTs, our diets, our key institutions who are looking at the implementation of lot of policies, programs and schemes. Perhaps how are we investing in these people, investing in these faculties for their professional development, and looking at the entire system. Perhaps without having done that, systems won't change. And therefore, I I say this, that we need to nurture the professional capital. We really need to move with a systems thinking approach and have that as a perspective if we want the systems to change. There's some data that I have brought with regard to diets and SCRT. This is pure data. Why I'm sharing this is we need to understand this and therefore really look at it how we can really invest in this human capital, create opportunities so that the social capital is built, and trust in their agency so that they get more practice in dealing with different situations and different challenges that are there on the field. Give them that autonomy and that decision making that will develop their decision capital, which in toto will help us change the system. Can go some of the points I think we need to focus, others are not important. Now, there's a renewed emphasis on strengthening of diet, and as as has been mentioned, a lot of things are getting reinvented. So this is one more reinvention, which wherein a huge budget announcement has also been made for diets. But let's really look at it in this redefined role that diets have. How much are we investing in them? So diets currently, as of now, are into doing elementary education or restricted to elementary education and conducting the pre-service programs for elementary teachers, that is the DLED programs. But eventually with NEP by 2030, we know that only 4-year integrated education programs would remain, and that would be the basic eligibility criteria for diets. So DLEDs would have to phase out, and therefore the redefined role of diets would then be more into in-service training than into pre-service training. Diets would then be expected to take up a lot of short-term programs for promoting local instructors, which is part of NEP again, artists, craftsmen, and vocational teachers, which currently the teacher education system is not addressing to. Developing a lot of curriculum and material for the CPD of teachers, school principals, and CRC and BRCs. We now have this national mentoring mission and the national professional school standards, and diets would be having a huge role in supporting and mentoring and monitoring the teacher licentiate, if I may, licensing, if I may call it that way, and developing a training registry for the teachers. For the first time, I think academic leadership has been spelled out, and diets have been given this assignment of building the academic leadership at the cluster and the block level to the capacity building of the heads of the school complexes and the CRCs and BRCs. And this role, I think, planning, monitoring, hand-holding, supporting, and building capacities remains with them. Now, with this redefined role, what is our investment in the diet? The data tells that there is, okay, the data tells that there is around 60 to 70% vacancies across country in the diets and the SCRTs. My understanding of the field, I did 3 consultation workshops with, I'm asked to conclude, so I'm giving a brief on it. There have been number of comprehensive assessments of this centrally sponsored scheme on teacher education. Different researches, one is by Padma herself, 2009 report by NCTE, and then one 2006 by NIEPA, and 2017, 2012 by NCRT, 2017 again by MHRD, and they've all acknowledged what has been that the number of vacancies are there, but nothing has happened for all these years to really appoint new faculty. There's a lot of things to be said. There's lack of linkage with higher education and research organizations. SCRTs generally don't assess the training needs. There's a top-down approach in it. I think that has been sufficiently said. Lack of functional autonomy for academic and administrative. What I am sharing as a data is based on my consultative workshops, some of them online and some of them offline, with more than 22 states and then 468 participants. I've interacted, and that is where I'm sharing this data from. I'm not sharing the profile of the sample, but the recruitment, I'm just sharing some of this hard data, which There is direct recruitment through public service commission exams from outside education department. When I say outside education, they could be direct recruitees. They don't need to have bachelor's in education degree also in some of these states. In some of these states that is mandatory, but in some states like Uttar Pradesh, for example, they are allowing B.Ed is okay. They don't need to have M.Eds also. So 100% recruitment from outside the education department, while in Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, Maharashtra, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Mizoram, Sikkim, and Tamil Nadu. Delhi has 75 to 25, so 25 comes still from within the system, 75 outside the system. Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, and Kerala has 50-50. There's another direct recruitment which happens from the school education department, like in Gujarat, Haryana, Assam. So basically, these differences also. The last column I think is important, where there are deputational posts in diet, where you are appointed as a PGT in school, and after 3 years you'll be transferred to diet, and maybe after 3 years from diet you again go back to a school. So the continuity of the faculty in the diet is not there in states like Himachal, Jammu and Kashmir, Jharkhand, Punjab, and Madhya Pradesh. And therefore, the continuity of any reform, any learning is also not there. And this creates a huge problem when it comes to implementation, when it comes to pre-service or in-service capacity building, and when it comes to the investment that is made in the professional development of these. I'm not looking at the issues and challenges. I'm coming at the eligibility criteria. Now, there are so many variations. So, in one state, in the diet, you'll see all these variations. So, there is PG degree in any subject with 55% marks, and double post graduation with net, SLET, and PhD as a criteria in Delhi. And their salaries are also at par with the UGC scale. While in case of other states, for example, in Haryana and Kerala, there is net SCLET qualified, which is required, but a PG degree in education with 55% marks. But there are other states like Andhra Pradesh and Bihar, where PG degree in education with 50 is okay, but along with it, minimum 3 years of experience regular teaching is required. Gujarat and Punjab, Gujarat has 5 years of minimum teaching experience which is required, of which 2 years should be after doing MEd. And in Punjab, 6 years of teaching experience for PhD degree holders and 8 years for non-PhD holders. So there's a lot of variation when it comes to eligibility criteria also. In Tamil Nadu, they say PG degree in education with 55% marks, while PG in any subject content discipline can be 50% also. Arunachal Pradesh and Manipur, they settle for PG with 50% marks, double PG with 50% marks. Mizoram, Lakshadweep, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands, they have 3 years of regular experience at any level, which is mandatory. Now, here I think what is important to really see is Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, and Jammu and Kashmir. Here, PG degree in any subject with B.Ed or DLEd is also okay. So, a qualification of a teacher is considered to be okay for a teacher educator also. So, in Uttar Pradesh, you may have a teacher educator with MA B.Ed or MSc B.Ed, things like that. Similarly, in West Bengal and Jammu and Kashmir. In Himachal Pradesh, once again, they have specified it B.Ed with 50% for foundational courses, but for pedagogical courses, if you are appointed in diet, you need to have MEd with 50%. So they've differentiated foundational courses and pedagogical courses. And Assam, it is very strange. They have put MEd or MA or DLEd. So they have equated a diploma degree with master's in education degree, and that is okay as a professional qualification. So you'll have faculty in a diet with such huge variation, all on a same salary scale. So this leads to a lot of job dissatisfaction, and this leads to a lot of issues in operations also. In Uttar Pradesh, the first level of appointment is, I'll be finishing, ma'am, without I have that in mind. In Uttar Pradesh, the first level of appointment is direct recruitment. So, where MA, BEd, or PG and a bachelor's degree in education is compulsory. But for the second level of promotion, which is again a direct recruitment in Uttar Pradesh, where 50% are through promotions and 50% are through direct recruitment in senior lecturer also and in vice principal and principal's position also. And they come from administrative cadre. So they may not even have a BEd degree. So one becomes a senior lecturer even without a BEd degree. One becomes a principal in a diet even without a BEd degree. And in 1 year or 2 years' time, they will then shift to their equivalent or higher promotional posting in administrative. So they may become a basic Shiksha Adhikari, they may become a DEO, or they may any other position in the administrative cadre. So these are huge issues with regard to such kind of this is, I'm just talking about tenure of senior lecturers, as I mentioned. So in Haryana, it is 1 year. Average tenure of principal in Uttarakhand and Punjab, it's 1.5 years. Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, 2 years. Maharashtra, Mizoram, 2 years. Only Kerala and Gujarat had 5 years. And in states like Himachal Pradesh, even for lecturers, it's a tenured period of 3 years. So after 3 years, you can seek a transfer in some other position. So if your location is a difficult location, you can really do that. So this is the kind of challenge at the field level. This is simply to say that there is total lackadaisical attitude on the part of the system when it comes to investing in human capital. All this data is about saying investing in human capital. So there's no investment in human capital, even with regard to the entire process of recruitment, induction, continuous professional development, or career progression. There's hardly any opportunity of career progression in education, for that matter, if I may say in general. So a school teacher, I join as a PRT and I may retire my life as a PRT or as a TGT or as a PGT. Similarly, in diets, I may join as a lecturer, and in states like UP, I may continue to be a lecturer because there are senior lecturer and principals come from direct recruitment. And as we move higher up the hierarchy, it becomes narrower. The positions become narrower. So I don't have any vertical mobility, and the system has not created a scope for horizontal mobility. So even in terms of professional advancement or motivation, there's hardly anything in the system that really helps me build on it in terms of maybe even allowing me to really take up 1 year sabbatical or something to really advance myself in my own professional fields. So this is the kind of the data on the induction practices, data on the CPD practices, the career progression practices. So somewhere where we need to really work on, if we want systems to change, work on the people, process, and practice. We've simply forgotten the people, if I may put it that way. We are not bothered about the process and the practice. So uh, we are only, as I use the words of Vimla Ramchandran, we are only looking at my own as a bureaucracy. What is my legacy? What do I want to leave? So whatever has been done before, I don't want to learn from it. I don't want to continue it. I want to start something new, because that will add to my appraisal and that will tell me, oh, this person has done this. So and now with data madness that has come into the entire system, I was recently in one such workshop where an officer was boasting so heavily that we have had an entire data management system. Now everything is so much online. For our primary schools also, our question papers have become OMR sheets. And he was so proud saying that. And I simply asked me, really? You want for primary schools OMR sheets? Matlab, what about the fine motor movements and the other developmental aspects that a child in a foundational year requires? But it is about showing what can help me project myself. So as long as we look at the system from such narrow perspective, perhaps systems won't change. And therefore, if we want systems to change, we'll have to invest in people, we'll have to invest in building the social and the professional capital. That is the only way to change the system. And it begins with us, yes. So I am the system. And therefore, we make every little attempt that we could in our own roles to really see how we can work towards questioning and reflecting existing.
Yeah, I request Miss Meher Padamji to please hand over a little gift to Dr. Kashyapi.